Nerds, it's your boy Neves, aka Watch with Neves, and I'm here with my co-host Jeff, aka DJ. You know what, Jeff? You should be the host today's episode because I'm having a lot of technical difficulties, man. You come up with your own nickname today.
Uh,
Yes, bro.
DJ Jazz? I don't know.
DJ Jazz. All right, listen, guys. Sorry, I've been out of commission for a while. A lot of reasons for that. Number one, I had a wedding to attend to, so shout out to my friend Ariba who just got married. It was an amazing wedding. Had a lot of fun. I did feel a little under the weather afterwards, so I thought I had COVID, but I do not. I got COVID tested. I'm just a little bitch, so it's really not that bad. But I do have a little bit of a cold, and my ears are popped, so I cannot hear that well. And also, since I took some of my stuff to Arizona to possibly do a podcast, I brought it back and none of my stuff works anymore. So it's like the story of our lives. Every time we take our stuff anywhere and we bring it back, we have to redo all of the troubleshooting. So I am on my phone currently, and hopefully Jazz can pick up the slack here. What's up, Jazz?
I'll work on it. I'll try and work miracles today. We'll see.
All right, all right. Why don't you introduce our guest?
Do we need to introduce Skeeb? He's been on the show for what, 4 episodes so far. He's our One Piece expert. One of my best friends. Like, Skeeb, what else?
One day we'll find the One Piece together. That's
Let's
part
do
of
it.
the journey that we're going.
Let's do it. And by the One Piece, we mean like love and marriage and happiness.
Yeah, exactly.
And friendship.
All right. And friendship. Exactly. All right. Listen, this was a fun episode because this is the episode we get to meet our friend Sanji. Let's go around and talk about how we feel about Sanji in the anime and now in the show. Skeeb, you want to go first?
Skylar Taz, or is it Taz Skylar? That's his
Taz
name?
Skylar.
Taz Skylar.
Yeah.
I've been watching a lot of the Netflix YouTube related content that they had. There was one where he was doing his audition tape, and I think there's like where the other cast members watch their audition tapes, and they're all just saying how amazing he looked, how like perfect he was for the position. But generally speaking, I think once again hit it on the nail. They've casted the perfect person for this position as well. Like even during his casting, I think he started to learn more about chef, like how to be a chef on the spot, how to kickbox or use like kick moves and all this stuff. So, and doing his own stunts as far as I heard.
Yeah, he did a lot of his own stunts. And what's really cool is they recorded all of this stuff pre the strike. So they were able to use previously used images and videos. And every time I see them on TikTok, there's a little warning on the bottom saying, hey, this was previously recorded, to make sure people don't think these guys are scabbing, which I think is pretty funny.
Jazz, you're on mute.
Oh, we support SAG and we support WAG. Let's get it done.
Yeah. It looks like they've been in negotiations for hundreds of hours. So hopefully it can get done, or we can finally have some celebrities on our show and start promoting. Because even though we've been doing podcasts, we haven't been promoting our podcast at all. So we can go back to doing that, and that'll be really cool. All right. So Jazz, what are your thoughts about Sanji?
As Skeeb said, they nailed the casting on the head. The fact that this guy can actually cook in real life now, like, it just makes me so happy. And then his kicking, like, he was told he has to be able to raise his leg over his head, and then he got it done. Like, he is legitimately putting all of his effort into being the perfect Sanji, and I'm very happy about it.
That's really cool. I didn't know he could do that. That's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Sanji was like an Indian name. I thought, like, when I first heard about this character, I thought he was like an Indian guy. Then I saw him and I'm like, oh, he's French. And it's like, makes sense. French culinary cooking, all of that stuff. I thought it was really, really cool. I was very curious how he got the name Sanji. It sounds very Indian to me.
Well, San also means 3 in Japanese, but we'll get to that later.
Okay, all right, very cool. So, all right. At the end of the last episode, basically we find out that Garp is Luffy's grandfather, something that we do not know in the anime for a while, which I thought was pretty cool. And they start throwing cannons at the Going Merry. And as they try to throw cannons back, Usopp doesn't really know what he's doing. He's kind of just lying about how he knows how to use the cannon. He tried to put in the cannon from the back, and I'm just like, bro, what are you doing? Yeah, good effort. The only person who knows what they're doing is what do you call it? Nami,
I mean,
and that's about it. Poor Zoro doesn't even know what port means, and like it's just really funny. And then when they start shooting cannonballs, Luffy inflates himself like a balloon and shoots it back at him, saying he didn't know he could do that himself, which is really cool because we do see him do that in the anime, and in the anime he does that quite a bit. So I thought that was really cool to see. I was a little skeptical about how it would look in CGI in live action, but it didn't look half bad. What are your thoughts of the little balloon maneuver that he did, Skeep?
yeah, well, in the anime, actually, the Gum Gum Balloon, he actually uses it against Buggy, and this is just one of the things that is kind of changed in the anime. And he actually, when he was on the island when he was a young kid, he would always test out his moves like Gum Gum Pistol and Gum Gum Whip, and Balloon was one of them. But yes, Garp did throw one of his meteor fist throws, which is his signature, throwing the cannonball and try to wreck ships. And Luffy was able to project it, and it's really good. It's really good arsenal in his form of weapons against other enemies.
Oh, I had no idea that was one of Garp's official move. That's pretty cool. Jazz, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I believe it's Garp's meteor
Meteor fist
fist.
technique.
Yeah, right. And so he's known as Garp the Fist for a reason. Like his punches can like quite literally knock out anybody. He's gone
Mm.
on to take on legends with just his bare hands, and he got the nickname Hero of the Marines because you'll find out later. But there was a fight, and he was just fighting with his bare hands the entire time. That's how strong this man actually is, and he's not even in his prime anymore. In his prime, he was way stronger. So seeing the meteor fist and just using his hands to throw cannonballs, literally, like it was just phenomenal. And the damage that they were doing, amazing. This was actually very true to the anime. Um, Unfortunately, the anime you see this right after the Ennie's lobby arc is when he does this in the anime. So Neebs, you're pretty close there.
Okay.
Yeah, but they do show this in the anime, and this just held up perfectly. So
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
And Garp
Okay.
also, despite his losses against Luffy, he always laughs because he's enjoying Luffy's progression of success.
Okay,
Mm.
let's be real. Garp is toying with Luffy. If he wanted to take him down, he could totally take him down at any point.
Oh,
Yeah,
100%.
he does. He does say "attaboy" when he's a little impressed by Luffy. So I totally believe that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no, but given back to the reason why I said that he enjoys Luffy because he at Mount Kobalu, which is a location where Don Island is located in the East Blue. Garpa used to take Luffy and he wanted to train him to become a marine, but Luffy the whole time was like, "I want to be a pirate." So there's actually a flashback that. Anib, do you want to go over the flashback?
Yeah, but before we go into flashback, we do see a little bit of after they escape. We do see a conversation with Luffy and Zoro where Nami goes, "That's your first mate. You want to talk to him about what just happened?" And Zoro goes over to him and he goes, "How you doing?" He goes, "Good." He goes, "You want to talk about it?" He's like, "Nope, like, good talk." And I thought that was really, really funny
Perfection.
about their relationship. So I didn't want to mention that. But yeah, we can go into the flashback, and he wants to build a pirate ship, and his grandfather sees it, and he kind of just destroys it and says, "I'm going to train you, and your training starts now," which I thought was really cool because in the anime you don't see Luffy as a great fighter and how he's been trained, but in here you kind of get an idea that Luffy already knows how to fight, and in this flashback, kind of explains that his grandfather was actually teaching him when he was young, which I thought was pretty cool. Skip, you want to talk about that?
Hold on. Skeeb,
Yeah, I
did you
heard.
think the same thing I thought?
Yeah, I was going to say that in the private chat. We'll get to
Oh
that
my
later
god.
too. We'll get to that later too. Um, but yeah, like I was saying, they're on Mount Kobalu, in a location in the East Blue, and if you can see a lot of the details, there's smoke happening in the background. That is also kind of alluding to a certain area where they throw trash in this area, and that's kind of famous in the One Piece world as well. But yes, you're right. Luffy always wants to be a pirate, and Garpo wants to train him to become a marine, and that's kind of like the backstory and like the clash of what they have going on.
Yeah. So in this story, we see that Garp hires Mihawk to track down Luffy and kind of, bring him in alive, which is really cool. But then we get to learn about these characters who are one of the seven warlords of the pirate world, and they were pirates whose bounties were canceled, so they get to do whatever they want. and they have to do a few deeds for like the world order or whatever. And it's pretty funny because we see Kobe have a lot of problems with this. He goes, "Hey, I came here to treat everyone equally," and Kobe and Garp have a heart-to-heart conversation, saying, "Hey, listen, you got to know how the real world works. Are you prepared to do this?" And he says, I still believe that the Marines, even though they're not doing everything by the book, there are what's, between us and anarchy. So it's really cool to see like where Garp's line is, where Kobe's line is, and where all these 7 warlords of like the pirate world are. And I thought that was really, really cool. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
The Shibukai system. That's what it's called in the anime. It's
Ah.
fascinating when you think about it. Really, what it is that, like you said, there are 7 pirates. They're incredibly strong, and their bounties haven't canceled so long as they work with the world government when they're called upon. I don't want to give too much away, but Kobe said it perfectly, actually, that this doesn't feel right. And later on in the anime, you will see what happens and why he feels the way he feels. So this one little sentence that Kobe says is just amazing foreshadowing for the live action viewers, because you will get to see some incredible screenplay written just from that one line. So I'm very
Mm,
excited they introduced it early on.
very cool. Ski, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like you mentioned, in this episode, Kobe learns that the Marines have to bend the law sometimes. And yes, the world government has legalized piracy when it comes to for their own purposes, turning dangerous criminals into the warlords and making sure that the warlords have free reign of whatever they want. So, for example, Mihawk can sail wherever he wants, and he'll never get in trouble. That's just the freedom that he's been given as a warlord of the sea. But as long as whenever there's something that comes up in the world government, they have to come at a moment's notice. So um, yeah, they're basically like the war dogs of the government.
Mm,
Yeah, and then you're right. Garp was like sometimes in this society you have to kind of bend these rules in order to kind of control it at the same time. And Kobe's against it, but I think Kobe leans towards it later on too.
mm. All
Yeah,
right.
it's gonna
So
come
we.
back for sure. And one other thing I want to mention is that if it's like a nuclear deterrent, right? We have these nukes. If you mess with the world government, we will use these nukes against you.
Yes.
And
Mm,
that's how this whole system came to be. One other thing I want to mention is that if the warlords don't answer the call, they do lose their status. So whatever the world government wants, they have to do. If they're gonna say, "Hey, no more attacking villages," they'll have to do it. Now, oddly enough, in the anime, sometimes they don't say that, so we get to see the dark side of this world.
Yes.
And
mm,
I'm hoping to see it in live action very soon, because I believe the next season should start off with one of the warlords.
Yes. And
So very hyped about that.
what I also love about the warlords is that there's 7 of them. And as we know, we only know one, and his name is Mihawk. And so something that correlates to the other warlords is that they're kind of named after animals.
oh.
They have appearance of animals. And we'll get to that when we eventually get to the 7 warlords. 6 warlords.
Okay, very cool. So, what are your thoughts of this live action Mihawk? I thought he was really cool looking with the contacts and the big sword and the tiny sword. And we also see him take out Don, what's his name?
Krieg. Don
Krieg.
Krieg.
Yeah. And he was a character that was a little bit, had a bigger role in the anime, but I guess they shortened his role in this one. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so Yoru is the sword that Mihawk has, and it's a black blade sword, which means it's one of the most powerful swords in the One Piece world. And that actually works really well for Mihawk because he's the greatest swordsman in the world. And going back, he uses Yoru to literally slice one of Don Krieg's galleons. Don Krieg is a really notorious pirate. He has about I think 50,000 men and 50 ships. So you can easily see Mihawk slash it from a distance. But in the scene, as we're watching it, he's actually using a Bluetooth snail, like if we've seen earlier, and he's talking to Garp, and they're conversing about how Garp has to send him on a mission to go find Luffy. But in the meantime, he's fighting Don Krieg, and in the scene, we see a defeated Pearl on the ground. Pearl is one of Don Krieg's first commanders, in his army, and we don't really get a name, we don't really see a face, but we just see him on the ground. And Don Krieg, they kind of gave him a watered down version because in the anime he has different sets of guns. He has two in his hands all over. And yes, you're right. He did play a pivotal role in the Barita, sorry, Sanji's like story
Verity.
arc, Barati, Sanji's story arc, and they did lore it for a little bit. And as you see, Don Krieg shoots a bullet, Mihawk slices it in half, which is kind of an allude back to the anime because in the anime he like pivots the bullet away, and then it basically kills two of Don Krieg's men, and he's able to apprehend Don Krieg in an instant.
Very cool. Yeah, that was a great introduction to Mihawk. So yeah, we do get to see him, and unfortunately, he takes him out really, really early, and then he makes his way to the Barati. Now let's talk about the Barati. So it's a fish ship that is a restaurant, and they find it because Luffy can smell meat and soy sauce and butter, and he decides, hey, let's go here. So the gang goes there. They eat a lot of food, but to pay for this food, they don't have money. So what they decide to do is Luffy decides to write an IOU, and he goes, I'll pay it once I'm king of the pirates. And they're like, well, that's not going to happen. You're going to be our chore boy, which is really different from what happens in the anime, because in the anime, he accidentally destroys the captain's room by landing in it or something like that, if I
Mm-hmm.
recall. So it's a little bit different, but I guess they did it to speed up the story. And then Sanji is the chef. He is the greatest chef in the what is it, the East Blue? But he has this dream of seeing the All Blue. Now, the All Blue is a place that where the West, East, North, South all come together, and it's called the Old Blue. And you get fish from every region, seaweed from every region, spices from every region, and it's a dream for a cook to actually be there. So that's his dream and what he wants to do. Um, and he's kind of just stuck at this restaurant at the moment, and he's not even allowed to create some of the best dishes that he wants because sailors just want meat, medium well, and whatever. And he's like, well, this is trash food. I want to cook something really good. Was Zeph, I believe, is the guy that he works for. He gets really mad. He
Mm-hmm.
makes him be a waiter for the day, and this is where he meets our gang, and he meets Nami, and obviously he has a big crush on Nami, but he has a big crush on almost every woman he sees. But for this show, we only really see him have a crush on Nami. What are your thoughts with the introduction of Sanji?
Well, once again, Sanji, yes, the assistant chef was awesome. I think they also watered down a little bit of his flirtiness because in the anime, he, as you're saying, flirts with every single woman that is in Baratier and kind of is the charming guy. But yes, really enjoyed seeing this. Going back to what he did earlier, is that he created this true bluefin tuna satay made out of elephant tuna, and this is actually from a manga series called Shokugeki no Sanji, and this is like a mini series off that doesn't really have to like relate to the One Piece world, of just like a one of those spin-offs. And in the series, you get a lot of like fish that are rare fish that also get to be seen in the anime, but also not in the anime. And the bluefin tuna is one of them, and that's like the dish that he made.
Very cool. I had no idea. That's pretty cool. Jazz, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so I know they dialed him down a bit, but I was kind of hoping to see it in full effect, because the way they introduce Sanji here, especially to the patrons of the restaurant, right? In the anime, there was an admiral, full body, and well, not admiral, but he was a
Lieutenant
marine,
is lieutenant.
lieutenant. That's what it was. Yeah, I couldn't remember his rank. Um, he was trying to like show off to this one girl. He was like, "Oh wow, this bottle of wine, it's from this region, from this time period, blah blah blah." And Sanji's just like, "No, it's not," and just walks
Mhm.
away. And then there's an actual fight between Sanji and Full Body. Here, there's a fight between two other patrons. A pirate who's like, "I'm not gonna pay," and blah blah blah.
Crescent
And
Moon
then
Valley.
Sanji, yeah, and then Sanji just puts him down, which it's a good way to introduce him. But at the same time, I kind of wish they showed more of his anime personality, and that wouldn't have been that too hard to do. So I was kind of upset about that. But again, it's fine, I guess. Like in the grand scheme of things, I might be being too picky here. I thought it was just fun the way they were introduced, and I'm looking forward to see what happens. One thing I do want to talk about before we get into the next segment is that when they were first coming into the Baratier, uh, Luffy's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be king of the pirates. Give me a seat." And the Maître D was like, "Nope, don't know who you
Hmm.
are, don't care." Until Nami slips him some money, then they
Right.
actually get seated. And it was
Yeah.
really funny when Zoro couldn't sit down because his swords are on his right side, so he was trying to get in from the right side of the curved booth. Then he was like, "Nope, I'm sitting on the left side," and it was so good because I feel like that's something that wasn't in the anime. But at the same time, that's something that would happen in real life, and they held true to it. Like they didn't try to like CGI it, they didn't try to like screw that up. They just made it work, and it was so funny and good. I actually enjoyed that at the anime, or sorry, in the live action a bit more than the anime.
I did also enjoy that. I thought that part was really funny. But I do want to go back to Sanjay. Now, you guys watched the show when you were a lot younger. You watched it back in the 90s or wherever. Um, I'm watching it now. And in a post Me Too era, I find Sanji in the anime very creepy and pervy, to be honest. And I am actually glad they dialed him down a little bit because he comes off really pervy in the anime. And I believe like if you're watching it back in the 90s or the 2000s, it probably doesn't, click for you because a lot of stuff we got away with back then. But like I watch some of the stuff now, and he's a little creepy. Like there's parts of him that are chivalrous and really good, and I'm glad they kept that part in his personality. But I wouldn't mind if they tone down a little bit of the perviness, which we see in some of the other seasons.
Maybe I need to rewatch it because I don't remember that at all.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's some parts there he's
Oh
a
God.
little. There's some parts where he's just like making sure that they wear skimpy outfits and like peeping and doing a
Oh
lot of weird
what?
stuff.
yeah. For the
Yeah,
peeping. We see peeping Tom Sanji,
Oh
yeah,
God, I
yeah.
don't remember this at all.
and he gets these constant nosebleeds often. I think later in the series, and that's still very canon to the series. There's at least one or two episodes that deal with him trying to get blood transfused back in him because he lost so much blood, becoming very pervy. So yes, pretty good that they did dial this down. Another thing they did dial down was his twirly eyebrows.
Oh
Now, the
yeah.
twirly eyebrows
I
is a
do
very
miss the eyebrows.
significant trait for his family, for him, just generally speaking, genetics wise. And so, what they'll do about this later on in the series, we'll figure that out seasons later on. But yes, I wish Usopp had his long nose, Sanji had his twirly eyebrows, but here we are.
Yeah. Hey, it is what it is. I feel like purposely it might have been distracting and they didn't want that purposely, but who knows? Maybe not. Well, all right, let's go into a little bit about uh Luffy being the chore boy and having to do these dishes. He gets a little bit more insight in Sanji, and he realizes that he wants Sanji to be part of his crew because he has a dream and he has a soft spot for people who have dreams. So we see Sanji and Luffy connecting, but on the other side, the team is just drinking and having a good time, and Usopp is out there running his mouth, and Mihawk seems to catch a wind of what he's talking about. While this is happening, Zoro and Nami played this game where they try to see who knows each other better by playing a drinking game, which to me is just like to further the plot along to get us a little bit of an idea of like what they
Mm-hmm.
are. So he talks about how he had one friend, and she talks about how she came from a small village and didn't have any friends. Um, and when Mihawk shows up, Zoro challenges him to a duel. And at this point, Nami's like, "What are you idiots doing?" And we kind of see the wheels in her head spinning, and we're like, "This is where she's going to betray them." And she starts finding out, like, how can I go to the island where she's from and leave these guys? But she also doesn't want Zoro to die and fight this guy because she thinks he's not good enough. Uh, what are your thoughts about that whole exchange?
Yeah, it's a little bit different from the anime. Yes, Nami is trying to get back to her island or trying to leave this area. What she does in the anime is that she steals the Going Merry, and that leaves Luffy, Sanji, Usopp, and Zoro stranded, trying to figure out what they need to do. In the manga, sorry, in the live action, they actually give Nami a little bit more personality. She's a little bit more empathy towards the crew. She's been bonding with this crew. It kind of shows that they're building this sort of friendship, and so she does stay behind and she watches the fight against Zoro. And yes, she cares so much about Zoro that she doesn't want to see him die.
Exactly.
I was wondering how they're going to do this because when we first had Nami's betrayal in the anime, I really didn't like her. And I was like, how are you going to play this to where it works out? And in the live action, surprisingly, it worked kind of better the way I see it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like, it wasn't the betrayal of them just like stealing a ship. It was a whole nother level of betrayal, which I'm not sure if it happened in this episode or the next episode. We'll get back to that because I think Arlong comes in the next episode, right? In the live action.
Yes, he comes in the next episode.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll get to that later. But right here, let's get back to this episode then. With Mihawk then. Mihawk showing up the way he did. He almost seems a little bit goofier because in the anime he's just so stern and serious, and in the live action he's a bit more go with the flow. I'm gonna have some fun, which I always imagined Mihawk to be. Right, I didn't imagine him to be as serious as he was even in the anime, and so seeing him in the vision that always wanted him to see him made me very happy that in live action he's a bit more laid back and a bit more easygoing and fun loving.
Okay. I did find it interesting where Mihawk he sees Zoro and he accepts the challenge. And the next day when he sees them, he does see Luffy and he goes, I like that hat, which I was like, he's seen that hat before.
He
It's
knows.
right. He's seen that hat before. He kind of knows what's going on. So the things are ticking. But what I really love about this is that Nami's trying to convince Zoro to not take on this fight, and Luffy says, "Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea." And then Zoro says, "What was the first thing that I told you when we met?" And he goes, I'm never going to join your crew. He goes, no, not that other thing. I hunt your kind for a living. No, not that thing. And he goes, oh, you made a promise to become the world's greatest swordsman, and that's your dream. And he goes, Nami's like, aren't you going to say anything? He goes, I'm not going to stand in the way of anybody's dream. That's his code. That's his morals. And no
Mm-hmm.
matter what happens, he'll never stand in the way of somebody's dream, which you learn so much about Luffy in that one instance. And I think that's so great. And he's like, no, I'm going to let Zoro do his thing. And she's like, he could die. He goes, it is what it is.
It's
Uh,
funny that you mentioned this scene because in the anime we think of Luffy as someone even more goofy. But
yeah,
here in this scene, he seems so mature and so smart. And I'm like, I like this new Luffy. Like, this is cool. Give me more of
yeah.
this. So I'm very happy they put the scene in here.
What about you, Skeeb?
Yeah, I enjoyed the scene as well. Like I think you summarized it very well, saying that he should never get in someone's way for following their dreams. Yet Nami is very empathetic, and she really wants Zoro not to do it. So what do you do in this situation? Who makes the call? I guess Zoro
Yeah.
makes the decision at the end of the day.
Also, one thing I do want to mention, we have some we get some scenes in the Baratier, and then we get some scenes in General Garp's or Admiral Garp's ship. And what you notice, the camera work is done so well because it's actually like going back and forth like you're on a ship, and you see things like lanterns and stuff swinging as if like it's in the sea. And there's such great attention to detail because the Bartier is standing still, whereas Garp's ship is sailing on the ocean, and you just see like things just swinging back and forth, and even the camera just dips left and right. I thought that was really, really cool. You don't see that in the anime because it's a cartoon basically, but in live action they put emphasis on that whenever they're in a boat that's moving, and I thought that was really, really cool. I don't know if you guys caught that.
Yeah, I did. And the thing about this too is that the Baratier was actually a ship that's in the middle of the ocean. But for the anime, the live action, they actually have it docked so that more people could be able to join and dock their ships as well. and enjoy the restaurant. But yes, you're right. The attention to detail is something that's very amazing, and I'm glad that they actually put this into the live action.
All right. Let's talk about the big fight between Zoro and Mihawk, because I thought that was really, really cool. And obviously, I think every single fight in this anime is, in this live action is not going to be as good as the anime, because animes are known for fights. Like, they're just incredible fights. But how do you think this shaped up in terms of what you were expecting and what you got? Jazz?
I thought it held up really well, actually.
Mm.
When you see the fight in the anime, obviously it's a bit more cartoonish, obviously. But here, when Mihawk pulls out his little sword from his necklace, just like he does in the anime, he's like, "I'm gonna fight you with this," because that's how, strong I think you really are. Quote
Yeah,
unquote
because it's not
strong.
the size, it's how you use it, right?
Right? Yeah, exactly. But yo, the fight, like when Mihawk stops two of Zoro's swords the same way, like just like holds them in place, right? That
Yeah.
happened in the anime. They replicated that very well. And then as Zoro keeps fighting, he brings a third sword. He tries to slash him, and then Mihawk is like, "All right, time to get serious. Let me bring out Yoru." And then actually didn't even need to bring out Yoru. He just used his little sword, and he still got him, and it was just perfect. And I was like, "Oh my god, they nailed this. This is
Yeah.
this is great." And then when after the fight, I mean, it's a very quick fight, so I should probably say quote unquote fight. When Zoro was like, "Nope, I don't want to be slashed from the back because it's
The
a
wounds
mark."
on the back are the shame of a swordman. That's what it is, something like that.
Right. Yeah, and again, that was also from the anime. They held so true to that. And
Yeah.
then Mihawk does his thing and just slashes him, and just like the anime is like, "Nah, it's too soon for you to die." And I was
Yep.
like, oh, right in the feels. You brought out the nostalgia for me. Like, it was just so well done. I was very happy with it. Ski, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think you said it very well as well. They held true to the anime, and this is actually wasn't one of my favorite scenes of this episode, where they did really well with Zoro's fight. As you see, when he was fighting, he uses his two sword style, but it's not until he uses three sword styles when he gets really really serious. And with his three sword style, he used the 3,000 world technique, which basically takes all three of his swords and he twirls it, and he does a forceful thing, like he thrusts through. Sorry,
Like a
uh,
windmill or something.
no. And yes, it really brought me to tears when he gave his "I will never lose again" speech to Luffy, and I think that
Oh,
was
that was so
one of my
good.
favorite moments where he
So
raises his sword and says, "I will never lose again."
so that's the thing. Like I feel like that was the most anime thing to happen in the entire series, because that was literally felt like an anime proclamation. And usually I find that very cringe when it's in a live action compared to an anime, but like for some reason it just worked here. So I thought that was really, really cool.
It was so good. And
Yeah.
then I love Mihawk's line here is like, "Yeah, I'm gonna let you go. We need more wild cards in the world." And I'm like, "Whoa."
Yeah, he just let Luffy go. Also, I not me thinking Mihawk is just a devout Christian because he has this cross, but it's really just a sword. I'm like, wow, man, he loves Jesus,
Yeah, I
and it
think
turned out to be a sword.
yeah, I think that's kind of what it was. Even his small ship, it's like a crucifix. Like his sword, his Yoru kind of looks like a cross, and
hmm
his like little boat that he like goes around with is like kind of like a cross. So it's like a
Yeah,
significance to like Christianity there.
that's really funny. All right, so we see this battle, and we see Zoro with these really bad wounds, and they're like, he's going to be alive, or is he? So we're kind of in this thing right now where we know he's going to survive, but he's hurt, and he's hurt pretty bad. He may be out of commission for a few episodes, so we'll see what happens next. Um, but where does this episode leave off when it comes to Sanji? I think they don't really go. Sanji doesn't really do anything in this fight, does he?
No,
Yeah, and I
he's not
think this
supposed
kind of
to.
yeah. So I think that leaves off for like the next episode to be a lot more Sanji involved.
hmm And the next episode, we do get a lot more Sanji. I think the episode ends right there with Zoro holding sword up and giving the promise, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which, honestly,
So
a great place to end an episode. So well done, writers of One Piece live action.
Well, something that you kind of forgot to leave out, that you forgot about, is that Gin, which is one of Don Krieg's pirates.
yes, thanks for bringing that up.
Yes.
Oh, the dish they make some. Right,
Yes.
I did forget that.
So
I
Gin,
knew there was a Sanji thing we were missing. I knew it. Yes.
yep. So Gin is one of Don Krieg's pirates, and he stumbles upon the ship, and he's like, he basically goes to the back of the ship where Luffy and Sanji are talking, and he's like, "Oh, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten in days. Please give me some food." Now, there's a difference between the live action and there's a difference between the anime manga. So in this one, Gin kind of is like a survivor, and the fight has been going on for days. But as we know in the live action, it's only been a couple hours or something. So he eventually gets there. Sanji whips him up a meal, and he's like, "What do you want?" He was like, "Anything. I'm gonna whip you up a corned beef fried rice," and that's exactly the same thing they did with the anime and in the live action. And Gin appreciates this and he accepts this. Now, Gin had a very small role in the live action, but in the manga and the anime, he kind of fights Sanji, and it's a one-on-one battle versus while Zoro's fighting Mihawk and Luffy's doing his thing, and Nami takes the ship. So there's a lot of differences, and they did take away from this, but I think this was a very significant part because Luffy sees him give him the food, and it was like, "Hey, now you should become my cook of my ship," and Luffy gives him the speech.
So beautiful.
Solid.
So
Solid.
beautiful.
We love that. And then Luffy stands up to Zeph and says, "Look at Sanji. Even though you gave him all these rules, a man came in here with no money and he fed him. And then instead of getting angry, Zeph goes, good kid." So, there is a thing where Zeph is really hard on Sanji, and it may be because he thinks Sanji is too good for this place. Maybe he thinks Sanji deserves more. And maybe that's just his way of showing it.
Yeah, tough love.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that'll be the next episode. Let's talk about
we're teetering on some of the stuff that's happening in the next episode. But I think that's all we got for this episode. Anything else we're missing?
I think that was it, yeah.
Well, there's also one thing where Garp, as he's talking to Kobe, he's eating his dinner, and as you can see, he eats a lot of meat.
Meat,
so,
yeah.
Yep, kind of brings back the relationship with Garp being Luffy's grandfather, because Luffy loves meat as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Luffy is definitely not a vegetarian.
I want some steak now, man. I'm thinking about that steak he was having. Oh, it looked pretty good.
I know it did. It did look good. They had a lot of food at the Baratier. But yeah, that's all we got for this episode, man. Thank you everybody for joining us, and hopefully, I apologize for any technical difficulties in this episode. I will have all my equipment up and running soon, and that's all we got for today's episode. So until next time, guys, Salaam, nerds.
Peace.
I don't know how to